Welcome to MCR Edit. I'm Mayank Chaya. Today's subject: starvation, poverty, and all round despair in Afghanistan on the first anniversary of US withdrawal. In the midst of the first anniversary of America's precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan, just consider this one statistic. According to the United Nations, 97% of Afghans could be living in poverty by end of this year. An entire country has been pauperized by decades of wars and occupations it did not necessarily provoke. Afghanistan is also a shockingly starving country, now with a collapsing economy and widespread drought depriving some 20 million Afghans of food. According to the UN Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or UNOHCA, and I quote, hunger levels continue to stagnate at alarming levels. For nearly 9 months, over 90% of the population have faced insufficient food consumption. Despite marginal improvements coinciding with further humanitarian food assistance and the end of winter, Afghanistan still faces the highest prevalence of insufficient food consumption globally. Unquote. At the time of the US withdrawal, which was completed fully on August 30th last year, President Joe Biden asked publicly, and I quote, "What interest do we have in Afghanistan at this point with Al Qaeda gone?" Unquote. As it turned out, Al Qaeda had not quite gone, as evident in the dramatic over-the-horizon drone strike on July 30th this year to kill its leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in Kabul. For the foreseeable future, it appears impossible for the US to remain fully apathetic, considering that the Islamic State Khorasan, or ISIS-K, a mutation of the original ISIS, is emerging as the new threat from Afghan soil. It was ISIS-K that killed 13 American service members in August last year, even as US troops were scrambling to leave Kabul. According to the UN assistance mission in Afghanistan, ISIS-K was responsible for most of the 2,106 civilian deaths until June 2022. US defense experts have warned that ISIS-K could develop the ability to strike America and its allies in a year or so. Even as the Taliban sharpens its societal and cultural stranglehold over Afghanistan, despite its early promises of moderation, Washington has all but lost interest in the country after spending over $2.3 trillion in about 2 decades. Afghanistan post-withdrawal is a stunning example of what a sole superpower stomping over a country can do. To add to Afghans' woes earlier this year, the Biden administration froze $7 billion belonging to the Afghan Central Bank, the Afghanistan Bank, or DAB. It also decided to split that amount, with half to be used as compensation for the victims of the 9/11 attacks. Although the money would by default end up in the Taliban government's control, which is problematic, it actually belongs to the people of Afghanistan, now utterly desperate for money. It's a measure of how serious the liquidity crisis is in Afghanistan that a group of 70 international economists, including the Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz, have written to Biden urging him to release those funds. Starvation, profound impoverishment, unemployment, drought, and an overwhelming sense of despair have gripped Afghans. All this while, the Taliban has been busy dismantling with characteristic viciousness the rights of the Afghan women, said to be in action the worst in the last 100 years. If the Taliban's original purpose on taking over Kabul last year was to gradually gain some international recognition for what it now calls the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, it now stands fully destroyed.